Good evening to the members of the public and staff who are joining us here this evening. I want to welcome everyone to our community budget meeting. I am Bridget Souffrant, Chief Financial Officer for the City of West Palm Beach. On behalf of our Mayor, Keith James, and our Commissioners, District 1 Commissioner Kathleen Ward, District 2 and Commission President Shalandra Warren, District 3 Commissioner Christy Fox, District 4 Commissioner Joseph Peduzzi, and District 5 Commissioner Christina Lambert. We welcome you to this community budget meeting to present our balanced proposed fiscal year 2024 budget. The proposed fiscal 24 balanced budget achieves strategic pillar number 8 from the strategic plan, demonstrating financial sustainability and operational excellence. I would like to take a minute to acknowledge and thank City Administrator Faye Johnson for her work and effort in guiding this budget process. I would also like to thank the budget team, because without them, I would not be standing here in front of you today. Kyle Roberts, our budget manager, Rosanna Santana, our budget supervisor, and Monica Garcia, our budget analyst, have worked endless hours and tireless nights in order to present this balanced budget. Thank you, team. I sincerely appreciate all that you do. This evening, we're going to review the mission, vision, and core values of the city. We are going to briefly review the budget process, discuss property values and how that equates to property tax revenue. We will discuss the millage rate history, and then dive into the proposed general fund operating budget, as well as budget highlights. As a matter of housekeeping, I ask that we please hold questions until the end of the presentation. The City of West Palm Beach's mission is, in partnership with our communities, West Palm Beach delivers exceptional customer service that enhances quality of life, embraces inclusion, and promotes opportunity for all. The city vision, West Palm Beach is a vibrant and diverse world-class city. Our core values are diversity, integrity, respect, excellence, collaboration, and transparency. These are the statements and values that this organization and its employees embody. These statements are what we live daily and are the guiding factors throughout the budget document. From the staff perspective, the budget process begins back in February, where we review our contracts and needs at the departmental level. In April, the departments are responsible for entering their budget into the software. The departments are charged with entering their basic or mandatory requirements. By that, I mean they enter in their basic items needed to operate, such as office supplies or fuel, and then they also enter their mandatory requirements, such as items set by union contract or terms of a multi-year contract with a vendor. If departments have a special request or need that is not considered base or basic budget, they need to complete a special form for an above-base budget request. Those requests are submitted to finance and then reviewed by city administration. In May, the finance team is reviewing and compiling the data from all the departments. June is when things really speed up. At that point, we receive our preliminary taxable values and can begin to estimate our tax revenue. Oops. We hold our meetings with each department, finance, and city administration to examine and review their budgets. In July, we receive final taxable values, hold the mayor and city commission work sessions, and the community budget meetings. I want to take a moment to put the data that we are about to review in context. The proposed budget that we are about to review covers the general fund only. At this point, we are focused on the general fund, with discussion on all funds happening at the budget public hearings. Additionally, this proposed budget is in draft form, and while it is balanced, it is not 100% complete until we have received some final numbers from the state. The fiscal year 2024 proposed general fund budget is balanced at $238,042,982. The proposed budget before you maintains public safety and quality of life services and programs. These are outward-facing in nature and directly linked to your quality of life as a resident in the city of West Palm Beach. The budget before you also maintains our internal governance services. These are your inside-facing back-end services that are required for public safety and quality of life programs to succeed, such as legal, procurement, finance, and HR. The fiscal 24 budget continues best practices that were instituted in the fiscal 23 budget. We again have increased our vehicle replacement funding contribution from the general fund. We also increased the contribution for road paving. Fiscal year 23 was the first year on record that the general fund contributed additional dollars towards roads, and increasing that in the fiscal year 24 budget is a great accomplishment. The fiscal 24 budget completes leadership succession planning, converting 3 existing positions to assistant positions in departments currently without that succession planning. This budget also maintains a level $1.8 million of budgeted contingency funding for unforeseen circumstances. The County Property Appraiser's Office provides us an estimated assessed value by June 1st, and then final values on July 1st. We were incredibly happy when we received our preliminary values, and we're not expecting the numbers to move much from June to July. And then on July 1st, we found out that we gained an additional $140 million. With the final numbers reported on July 1st, our assessed values increased $2.8 billion, or 15.41% over fiscal year 23, for a total assessed or taxable value of $21,159,900,038. This is my all-time favorite chart. With another year of growth in our community, the conversations surrounding financial responsibility have continued to happen. The second row from the bottom shows you the new assessed value or taxable value of $21.1 billion. If we utilize the current millage rate of 8.1965, that would create $16.6 million in additional tax revenue resulting from the new values. The last row reflects the proposed millage rate reduction of 0.0657, bringing the millage rate down to 8.1308, and resulting in the city foregoing $1,008,109 in additional tax revenue. Here is the millage rate history, including the proposed millage rate reduction for fiscal year 24. In the greenish yellow, you have the operating millage that was discussed in the previous slide, and the orange is the specific debt millage. Fiscal year 23, last year, was the first millage reduction for the city since 2008, and now leadership is proposing a millage reduction 2 years in a row. Moving into the general fund budget, specifically looking at the revenues. This chart compares revenue by category, reviewing the fiscal 23 adopted budget to the fiscal year 24 proposed budget. Intergovernmental revenue category is down slightly, with a few grants that still need to be entered into the system. Miscellaneous revenue is down slightly because in fiscal year 24, we have no sale of assets that we are budgeting for. In fiscal year 23, we utilized cash carry forward to fund a portion of the vehicle replacement needs. We do not intend to do that or need to do that in fiscal year 24. The remainder of the revenue categories remain relatively flat at this point in time. Again, we are still waiting for some state shared revenue numbers. Despite having all of the new revenue estimates for fiscal year 24, we have a balanced general fund budget at $238 million, which is a 5.59% increase over fiscal year 23. Reviewing the general fund revenues by category in a different light, here you can see that property taxes is our largest revenue source at 52.5%. The second largest category is charges for services at 18.4%. Charges for services includes things such as our administrative fees, sanitation service fees, EMS revenue, and Parks and Rec programs. The top revenue highlights for the proposed fiscal '24 budget include property tax revenue with a $15.6 million increase, a $400,000 increase in charges for services, and a $600,000 increase in transfers into the general fund, resulting from increased funding from the CRA to offset innovative policing. Shifting into the proposed general fund expenditures. Again, we are looking at the expenditures by category, comparing fiscal year '23 adopted budget to proposed '24 budget. I will go into more detail in further slides, but I would like to draw your attention to the reserves and contingency line item. In fiscal year '23, that line item consisted of the $1.8 million contingency, which remained steady over the recent years, but it also held the reserves for the Real Estate Management Cost Center. In the fiscal year '24 budget, those reserves for that Real Estate Management Cost Center are being moved into its own special revenue fund outside of the general fund, and that accounts for the difference in those two numbers. Looking at your general fund expenditures by category, it is no surprise that personnel services make up the majority of our general fund expenditures at 65.7%. The second largest expenditure category is materials and services at 17.6%. The breakdown of our expenditure increases include personnel-related items increasing $9.8 million. This includes a 4% increase for health insurance costs, a cost of living increase for all employees, and an employee compensation plan, as well as a $330,000 increase in the police overtime budget. Materials and services increased as a whole by $3.3 million, accounting for all contractual increases and addressing any necessary ongoing budget-related issues, such as roadway and median mowing needs, tree trimming services to supplement staffing, and contractual increases relating to police body cameras. Continuing with the materials and services increase, we increased travel and training in police, HR, and a few other departments, totaling $169,000. We saw an increase of $286,000 in our solid waste contracts. The capital outlay budget is reflective of a $300,000 increase in police vehicle replacement, which is required by our union contract. We also realized a $1.3 million reduction in the debt service costs paid out of the general fund due to vehicle leases and capital bonds paid off during fiscal year '23, in addition to refunding a 2016 B bond that resulted in reduced costs. The final highlight is a $900,000 increase in the transfers out category. The transfers out accounts for a $200,000 increase in the general fund contribution to waterfront maintenance, as well as an increase in the general fund's contribution to road paving and vehicle replacement dollars. Here are the remaining dates for the budget process. Tomorrow night, Thursday, July 20th at 4:45 p.m., we have a meeting with a special commission meeting to set the not to exceed rate. At 5:01 tomorrow evening, July 20th, we will seek commission direction to prepare the preliminary fire assessment rate as well as the chronic nuisance assessments. As a reminder, at this point in time, the fire assessment rate is set to remain flat. On August 21st, we set the final fire assessment rate and chronic nuisance assessment roll. September 11th is the first public hearing for the adoption of the tentative budget and mill rate. On September 27th, we will be seeking the final public hearing and adoption of the 2024 budget. October 1st is when that budget will go into effect. We have created another opportunity for the public to share their opinion and ask any questions they have about the proposed 2024 budget. Members of the public can scan this QR code to be taken to the community engagement tool, or they can go directly to slido.com and enter in 716-2324 to reach the West Palm Beach budget item. This community engagement tool is currently open and live and will remain so until July 31st. For those of you who would like to know more about the programs and quality of life services that the city offers, please visit our website at these respective locations to view information for housing, parks and recreation, and library programs. With that, do we have any questions from the audience? Can you come up to the mic, please? Please identify yourself, name and address for the record.
Hello, Ross Harness. I live at 36 in Spruce on the north end. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate the work staff has put into it. I have so many questions.
First of all, thank you for coming 2 years in a row, Ross.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I want to talk about mainly two things. One thing isn't really a budget item, so I guess I won't touch on it, but related to transportation-related items. I'm a little disappointed to see the budget and brief have such little detail in it. I think the community would greatly benefit from a little bit more detail. But related to transportation items, I am excited to see that the city is committed to spending some of its own money on roadways and transportation-related items again. But with such little detail, we have no idea how much that actually is. I was part of a public meeting where, I forget who it was, said that our allocation of the surtax, the gas tax I mean, we spent half of it on a 1.5 mile restoration of South Dixie Highway. So that's not really a budget either. That's spent pretty quickly. But one of the main items you hear from complaints from the public, at least that I hear from my perspective, is related to transportation and congestion, mostly related to the new developments around the city. And the answer I always hear is we're working on it, and that working on it always has to do with receiving grants from FDOT or the state or the federal government or the TPA or somebody else. And as somebody who pays too much attention to this sort of stuff, those processes take years, sometimes decades. I think it would be very good to see a little bit of the city control a little bit of its own destiny here. There are solutions out there that are known and don't cost a ton of money. I'm not saying rip up a whole road and redo what's there, but we can have some pretty low-cost solutions to solve some of the congestion and transportation-related items. Related to that, I'm aware of there's a stack of traffic calming related items that the city's not really moving on. Traffic calming related stuff in the grand scheme of things is relatively cheap. It would be nice to see if the city could allocate a little bit of money to combing through the backlog of traffic related items. I'm not sure, but I think the traffic calming committee is defunct at this point. So is that stuff just sitting on desk or what's happening to it? I'd like to see some funding allocated toward that. But just in general, like transportation related items, it's the issue. Keeping out the marina, that's a separate issue. Keeping out cost of housing, that's a separate issue. That's more of a policy issue than a budget issue. But one thing that could be solved through the budget is by allocating a lot more money towards transportation management, active transportation. There's a bicycle plan out there. Let's work on it. There's a downtown walkability plan. Let's work on it, and let's use some of our own funding to do that. We don't need to wait years and years for funding to be able to do some of those things.
So, Ross, I will address a few of the comments where I can within my purview.
Thank you.
So I do know that right now what you're seeing is still rather early on. So we're focused on the general fund only. So the gas tax and the capital funds.
Separate.
Correct. We are looking up the date. We had a mayor commission work session specifically on capital improvements done by our engineering department a few weeks ago. I know that that was recorded. I highly recommend you to go and look at that if you haven't already, because I think you would get a lot of the detail of information that you're seeking from our past conversations. So I think that would give you some understanding of the grant dollars that we have, the bond dollars that have been allocated, and the struggles that we are currently having actually implementing some of these plans that have been decided.
Can I interrupt you on that subject?
Yes, go ahead.
Is part of our budget better compensation for a traffic engineer so that we can hire somebody? Because I know that position has been empty for several months, if not a year.
Yes.
Okay.
In a roundabout way, yes. On Monday, we did have another mayor commission work session on the budget as well as on compensation for city employees across the board, not across the board, but in direct detailed focus because of some of the staffing issues that we have been having. In the fiscal year 23 budget, I don't remember off the top of my head, but there were a few positions that were added to the engineering department to help manage the capital improvement program and the items that we have because it has become quite large. So I know that, yes, getting the FTEs allocated was one, getting people hired and in the seats is another. So we are making improvement on that between the two budget years. So what I can again remind, last year, fiscal year 23, we allocated $1 million from the general fund to supplement roads. So that is specific on, I don't know if it's Paiser rating, but the rating that they have on the roads throughout the city. This is what we need in order to accomplish roads in 23. We received a similar report from the city engineer. We have 1.4 million in the general fund right now as an additional transfer to capital to address roads to supplement the half-cent sales tax. I always mix that up coming from out of state, sorry.
That's fine.
So we will have more discussion and we'll have more of those numbers when we come to the first public hearing where we discuss all funds versus just the general fund. Do we have the date of that? June 21st was the capital improvement mayor commission work session. It was a good hour and a half, 2 hours going into detail of the projects that are currently open, what they believe staffing wise, material wise, funding wise they can accomplish in the next 2 to 3 years. So that may give you some additional information, and I have taken a note to reach out and ask about the traffic calming committee because I cannot speak to that at all.
No, I didn't expect you to. I appreciate the additional information. I think it would be, again, useful for some of this to be a little bit more transparent. I mean, there was a slide about transparency, and the budget process, it may be the most important process that the city deals with, and it's not very transparent, so that's very difficult. And there's a saying out there that says, your priorities aren't in your policies, they're in your budget. Well, to me, there's no priority because there's not a very transparent budget, so I would like to see that enumerated a little bit more.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, he'll have to talk to me after. All right, with that, thank you and have a great evening.